community means something very different than what I think a lot of people think it
Yeah.
does. And to do community right, you have to be doing it for primary motivations that are not directly revenue. And, you sort of have to be, we're doing the next right thing and revenue will follow.
Welcome back to another episode of the Revenue Reimagined podcast. We have a very special guest with us today. Someone who is not only a leader in their space, but someone that we consider a friend of the show. Jason Hubbard, who is currently the COO at RevGenius, literally grew up in startups. With both his parents being serial entrepreneurs, he worked his way through early stage startups, ranging from those he actually started and ran all the way to venture-backed unicorns. Throughout his career, he's helped grow 3 top Inc. 100 fastest growing private companies before now joining RevGenius, which is the #1 place for revenue leaders and professionals to come and learn how to scale. Jason, we've done a lot of work together, but we've never had you on the show. Thanks for joining us, man.
Nope. Great to be on here, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining. And when I think of you, and we've worked together now several years, I think like you're the master of like everything. Like you have your fingers in like a little bit of everything. In the go-to-market stream or in the go-to-market process, what is your favorite thing to do? What do you enjoy doing? And what can you drive the most value for within an organization?
That's a great question. Not an easy one. My favorite thing to do is build growth engines. Oftentimes, I mean, where I've had the most fun in my career have been opportunities I've had to come, largely, if not entirely from scratch, build, demand gen growth, all of that side of things, and do it in a place and a format where I basically, I've been taken off the leash and just said, go run. And when I do that, like I've been able to build pretty incredible things. I mean, most recently was at Astronomer, and over the course of just a little over a year, we 5x'd revenue and, took inbound, from doing basically nothing from a revenue demand gen standpoint to 80% of pipe and revenue by the time that I left. And so, that over a little over a year period is obviously pretty compelling. We also raised $500 million over that period of time. So, it's a lot of fun when I can come in and build that kind of stuff.
So building's hard. At least I think it's hard. And there's a lot of talk out there about various different parts of, or different aspects of AI, various different, call it cheat codes, if you will, or buy my, $19.99, $1,999 playbook to scale your go-to-market engine. Is there an easy way to kind of speed the process up, or is all this reliance on like, hey, how do we make it easier, really fucking us and making it harder in the long run?
Yeah, I look at what's going on with AI as just the latest iteration of people searching for the easy button. Easy button has been all kinds of things over the years. It's been, hey, marketing automation arguably was one of the first ones that we got our hands on, and so now I can go and acquire a giant lead list. And I mean, I was one of the worst offenders when this began, so I can't really judge too much. Load it in and start just firing away spam at people, and something would come out the other side of it because we hadn't overwhelmed everybody's inboxes, and Gmail and gatekeepers hadn't shut everything down and all of that stuff. And so then we got that one swatted away, and then we got sequencing tools. And so sequencing tools was the next way to be more effective at basically doing the same shit we were doing with the mass email marketing and all of that stuff. And so, I think we all saw how that played out with SDR, BDR teams, scaling ridiculously high, and just hey, feed them a great big list of contacts and some automation, and have them fire away at it. And so I think AI is sort of the next flavor of that. Hey, we had those avenues shut down, and we'd have this new shiny object and tool with AI. How can I go try and use it in the same lazy, easy button way?
Can you use it in the easy button, lazy way and be effective? Is there, let me reword that. Have you found a great AI tool that allows you to just hit the proverbial easy button?
All right. So as we were talking about with these early examples, it was all an arms race. So whenever we had the marketing automation, then it took Gmail, Microsoft, the gatekeepers, all of that stuff to catch up from flagging spam and trying to save people's inboxes. We also got more sophisticated in catching what people were doing. Same story with sequencing tools and stuff like that. So we're seeing the same thing happening on the AI front. Arguably, each cycle gets a little quicker as far as the ability to be able to get out front of it, and the arms race accelerates. But so the answer to the question of am I seeing people doing that effectively? Yes. How long are any of these strategies or tactics effective for? Not very long, typically. But everybody's poking around trying to find the chinks in the armor and how can they get away with using this
Mm.
as an easy button.
So it's interesting. One of the things you were just talking about is time to change. Back in the day, it was Google Ads, and you could, run Google Ads, or actually, it was like email. So email outbound marketing, like your open rates are super high. Then you went to Google Ads, and we see this ever accelerating market. When, like, how often or how like long of a period of time do you believe it is that they should be re-looking at these strategies? Is it 6 months, 3 months, 12 months? Like, what's that strategy look like?
I mean, you need to relook at the strategies. So there's one side where you need to do it on a regular cadence, kind of no matter what. Because if you're not paying attention to it, then the ground's going to shift, something's going to change, and so you need to be going back and doing it. I would argue at least quarterly, and investigating how's it performing. Are you seeing anything that you didn't expect, or that you didn't know out of it? But then obviously you may need to accelerate that based off of what you're seeing, and so and that can be kind of either extreme. It can be, hey, this is really not working. Why is this not working? We need to go investigate and figure out why. Or
Mm.
like, hey, holy shit, this is really working. Now let's figure out why and how do we go pour fuel on that fire and make that even more effective with it. And so, the short answer is as with everything, it's going to depend. But would do at least a quarterly cadence of like, hey, let's stop, let's pause, and let's look at what's going on here. Sorry, guys. What's going on, and then if something's wrong, then go figure out why.
I love that.
So,
Yeah, we're
go ahead.
looking at every 3 to 6 months, like doing ICP work, doing buyer persona. So that all makes sense. What you're just saying on like making sure that's validating quickly. Sorry, Adam.
No, you're fine. I'm used to it, man. I think. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Um, Building, tweaking, refining is hard. And there's not a lot of companies that I think really do a good job. And there's not a lot of companies that I think grow at a level that truly makes them happy, right? And I think when that happens and you get the pressure from your investors to grow faster, go hire more people, or go find the easy button, and use AI or whatever to accelerate your go to market. And listen, I'm not shitting on AI. I think AI is great. I think that there is a place for it. I think it is, if used to augment your strategies properly, you could do something really good. What you can't do is use AI to put, in my opinion, anything together and then just ship it without looking at it, because it hallucinates. And too many people do that. And you could tell whether that's in a pitch deck or a LinkedIn comment or a cold email or a call script or whatever it happens to be. You can inevitably tell when it's someone just using AI. But let's step away from AI for a second and talk about other ways that, you have seen be successful in really growing companies. And I think one of the ones that is all the rage right now, if done right, goes back to community. Funny, you're the COO of a community. But community also, I think, is one that people try to hit an easy button and think, oh, let's just spin up a Slack group, call it a community, and man, we're going to grow our business. I've yet to see that work successfully. I don't know. I have enough trouble getting Dale to answer me in Slack, much less other people in the community. Talk to me about where people are going wrong with community and how y'all are trying to make something different at RevGenius where people can go right with community.
Yeah, so community, like you hit on, is hard. especially if you're trying to tie it to any sort of monetization strategy or anything like that. And I think that tying to monetization too directly is where most of it fails.
Mm.
And I think what are people doing wrong with it? I think most people are doing most of the things wrong with it. I think the list of people that are doing things right with it is extremely narrow and small. And the ones that are doing it with a very indirect focus on actual monetization or revenue. And I'll use to illustrate something that I think we did really well at my first SaaS company, Cirrus Insight. And I also think that the Salesforce, who was sort of the mothership, we were a Salesforce integration, does fairly well with this, with between Trailblazer and their Salesforce community and their meetups and all of that stuff. Like they've got a very, very well built out community network with it, and it does it's all arguably their primary customer success support layer they have for most of their customers is this community that they've built. And we did similar things, and we piggyback a lot of it at Cirrus, where we reached out to every consultant partner, ISV, whatever, and said, hey, use Cirrus Insight for free. We'll be a resource for you for anybody that, internal stuff like that. And then we went and we literally sponsored and went to every Salesforce user group meeting or meetup that we could make it to. And so we built our own community in there off of that. And, we did that. It drove me crazy to no end. Like I tried every way I could to try and track what our partners and stuff were doing from a referral, revenue standpoint, all of that stuff. And no matter what I did, how easy I made it, how well I incentivized them, like maybe let's call it 20% of them would actually leverage any of that. And so, I'd run into them at Dreamforce and be like, hey, did you talk to so-and-so? I was like, we sure did. That was our second biggest deal this year. They're like, oh, great. There's like, that's some of them your way. I was like, you didn't even tell us. I mean, it drove me crazy, but our idea was basically let's suck the oxygen out of the room. Let's be the go-to anytime somebody has a conversation and need whatever, and let's be a support layer for all of these companies, partners, customers, whatever. Because as a Salesforce integration, we had to get really deep. Like we were arguably more knowledgeable about Salesforce than 95% of Salesforce employees or workers. I know this because I actually onboarded them when they bought our app. And so community means something very different than what I think a lot of people think it does. And to do community right, you have to be doing it for primary motivations that are not directly revenue. And, you sort of have to be, we're doing the next right thing and revenue will follow.
So you don't go into the community and just start pitching your product to everyone, right?
No. And I mean, this is something that we struggle with at RevGenius, where we monetize the community, but we do it indirectly through, sponsorships and partners. Sure. And we could do that myopically focused on like revenue, in which case we're going to do damage to the community because we're going to be doing stuff for the sake of partners that the community doesn't really like or is engaged with. And again, this is that easy button problem, because then you're ultimately shooting yourself in the foot, because then the community isn't engaged and doesn't grow and all of that stuff, versus doing the hard work of finding stuff that aligns between those two.
I think you all do a good job of this, right? Very rarely, I've never seen a post in RevGenius of, hey, come pay the sponsorship. I've also, anytime someone has Slacked me and said, hey, I saw you blah, blah, blah on RevGenius and I want to sell you this, and I send it back to you guys, they're immediately gone. You don't allow that solicitation. And I think you do a good job of keeping the community as a resource to help people. And that's what a community should be. There's another community out there. I will not mention the name, but I literally got 3 emails this week of, I got your name from the such and such directory and thought you might be interested in, one of them was a better, more targeted community. So let me join this community to steal customers. That's going to go over really well. Or just other sales pitches. And I think when I look at community and how to use it to accelerate your business, it's almost following the same premise of outbound, right? All you want to do, just add some fucking value to people. Like Absolutely. Add value and address pain, and the rest will come.
Yeah, and what you're talking about with the community, I think so. Timing of this conversation is interesting because Darren and I have been talking about, do we look at taking on some, investment, to try and grow some initiative and stuff like that? Do we look for an acquisition partner? What does this look like? And on the, taking on or a fundraising side of things, like we looked at everybody else that's gone that route. and it's gone disastrously for every one of them. Because you focus on the business model and the community suffers, and then whenever the community suffers, then you've lost your entire purpose of being. And so, that having to answer to a board, having to answer to your investors, your venture fund, whatever, tends to kill the entire community model.
Yeah, and so there's this the whole thing with community is super interesting from a like providing value perspective. But how can people leverage community, like sales reps, for example, right? Like, what's the best way for them to get in there? Is it, I think about it a lot like LinkedIn. You got to engage, you got to participate, but a lot of people just don't do it. Like, what are a couple things that people can do to like increase the value that they deliver to the community?
People buy from people. That's why companies who invest in meaningful connections win. The best part? Gifting doesn't have to be expensive to drive results, just thoughtful. Sendoso's intelligent gifting platform is designed to boost personalized engagement throughout the entire sales process. Trust me, I led sales for a Sendoso competitor, and I could tell you no one does gifting better than Sendoso. If you're looking for a proven way to win and retain more customers, visit sendoso.com.
I mean, to quote Adam and how he so elegantly put it, provide some fucking value. Whatever that is that you can provide that is valuable to somebody. So if somebody's looking for mentorship, if somebody's asking about a preferred platform, a solution for whatever, you've got some background or expertise in it. If somebody's looking for a job, if somebody's looking to hire somebody, like whatever, wherever you can provide value and lean in, do that thing.
Jason, I'm curious. You've built and worked at really all sizes of companies. You've raised substantial sums of money. You've driven substantial sums of revenue. What made you want to, I don't want to say come to RevGenius, but what made you want to like focus on community versus another product? Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah, a lot of what I mean, one, just relationship with Jared and the way sort of things played out, and everything sort of just kept moving in that direction. So I decided not to fight it, but back to what I achieved at Astronomer, the entire way we were able to achieve what we did there was, if you're not familiar with Astronomer, they largely own the Airflow open source project. And so that's an enormous community in a non-traditional sense of it, of these open source, participants, consumers of, to the tune of like millions of downloads. I mean, this thing's massive. And it was only by tapping and being able to ride that community and be able to do that in a sophisticated value add way that we were able to achieve those ridiculous growth metrics that we did. And so, counterintuitively, I was doing growth through community while at Astronomer and leveraging incredibly effectively. And so, it actually took me a little while to put those pieces together when I was looking at RevGenius. But I was like, okay, yeah, this makes sense. This is a lot of the play. And I mean, arguably, it was even harder to do on the Astronomer side of things because you're dealing with devs and engineers with an open source project. Like, talk about the most prickly audience out there for trying to do demand gen with off of a community.
Yeah. What's the next best thing that is going to be coming out? So we have AI generating. We have a lot of challenges with email deliverability. Like, where is go-to-market from a COO perspective going, and how can we be best aligned to get there?
Yeah, I'm extremely biased on this side of things. I'm an incredibly firm believer in strong coordination, unification between sales and marketing, so that and ideally that you're doing this in at least for the most of the B2B market segments in a ABM type coordinated fashion. We had obviously a long-standing debate last year around this idea of a GTM leader within organizations, where we started seeing those titles starting to crop up and everything.
I know someone who has that title.
And you guys know my opinion on that, which was we were largely playing a game of semantics. That title or role was what we used to call a COO. It's what we
Mhm.
had envisioned largely whenever we came up with the CRO title. It's what people had in mind largely with the chief growth officer. I think we've been putting different titles on thinking that would solve a need, and the need ultimately is like it's hard to find these people that can synthesize across all of the organization as well as across the entire user journey. But I think it's becoming ever more critical as things get more complex, things get more integrated, and go to market gets more difficult and sophisticated. These roles are going to become more and more and more critical. I mean, somebody that can actually effectively leverage AI and is somebody that can largely do this type of stuff. You've got to be able to think across systems and across your entire go-to-market motion, figure out how do all these pieces fit together. And I mean, that's one of the biggest power that AI brings to it is the ability to plug into all of these variety of things, bring in inputs from a lot of different places, and then be able to spit out coordinated things across all of that. But that takes an entirely different mindset and approach to things than what most of our leaders and most of our roles are doing right now.
You're spot on. I think, and again, it goes back to the easy button, right? Let's do what we've always done and expect different results. And I say this a lot professionally, personally. I said it to Zachary this morning, dude. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. We are in an era where more companies are being founded than I think I've ever seen in very hyper competitive spaces. Not everyone is going to win. And I believe a large part of it is how you build and eventually scale your go to market motion. How do you bridge that go to market gap and go from stability to foundation to repeatability to scalability? Dale, you see what I did there, right? But to do that, you have to start with the right people. So you're starting a company tomorrow from the ground up. You're the CEO. Who are your first 2 or 3 hires and why?
Great question. I'm extremely biased on this one as well,
Go
and
figure.
not non-traditional in the answer. So one of my first hires, of whatever their role or capacity is somebody that balances me from a strengths and weaknesses standpoint.
Mm,
So I am a big picture person, a strategy person, somebody that can figure out, okay, we're here, we want to get here. How are we going to do that? The second that I can see the finish line, and I'm like, okay, we proved that this is possible, and all you got to do is just go repeat and finish what we're doing. I lose complete and total interest in getting to the finish line. And so, somebody in whatever their capacity that is highly organized and has that attention to detail is somebody that I always wind up hiring extremely, extremely quickly
yep.
within that, and arguably needs to be one of the first hires. And the beauty is they can do kind of whatever. On a similar track, my best hires to a one have been people with broad-based general backgrounds. I mean, some of them being people I hired straight out of liberal arts colleges with a degree in something that had nothing to do with what they wound up doing. And I think part of this is just the nature of who does well, but it's certainly a lot of it is just my management style and what it's like to work with me. I hire people to come in and own something and figure it out and be the resident expert in whatever that piece of the puzzle is that they're responsible for. Even if they're not that person the day one, like that they're going to get there very quickly. And I'd be an idiot not to go to them for whatever that thing is. And so I look for people that bring really 2 things: intellectual curiosity and hustle. And if you can bring those 2 things to the table, I can teach you damn near anything.
Yep.
If you don't bring those 2, then I've proven that I am really, really awful at trying to teach and instill those things. And so, if I've got somebody in that can balance me on that detailed, finished product side of things, and I've got people that bring that hustle and intellectual curiosity, then I can kind of slot in and build out whatever we need based off of needs off of that. But those are my priorities from a hiring standpoint.
And I would put on top of intellectual curiosity, which I really like, is coachability. Because you may be curious, but
Yeah.
if you can't be coachable, like you could be giving them all sorts of great information, but If they don't apply it, it's that's super important.
Yeah.
In any role, for the record, like, sorry,
Yeah,
Neil, but we
100%.
talk about this in any role. Like, how many people have we all as leaders hired, likely earlier in our career, who checked every single box and they were great at everything and they were fantastic, but couldn't coach them on shit. And it was, well, I know better because I've done this. Don't tell me how to do it. Whether you are an AE, the COO, shit, even the CEO, are you coachable? And I can tell you as a CRO, I learned something from one of my reps every single day that I would take and apply. And if you don't have that mindset, my firm belief is not only are you a bad leader, you're just an asshole at that point.
Yeah. And I mean, I would argue that if you're truly intellectually curious, then you are coachable by definition.
Agreed.
And so, I think you can be somebody that wants to go and look for things to be the expert, but you're not really being intellectually curious right at that point. Like so coachability has to be part of true intellectual curiosity, I think.
Yeah. As we kind of wrap some of this stuff up, I'm curious. So you guys have built basically a lot of the community stuff from the beginning. What's one or two lessons that you would have did differently as a COO going into building out this massive community called RevGenius?
Yeah, another great question. So a lot of what I would have done differently were things that I had to come in kind of fix going into it. So I wasn't there for the building of, but I mean, I literally within the first 3 months that I was COO of RevGenius had to let go everybody save Jared, the founder. So like that's a lot of cleaning house. Like, I mean, literally nobody in there still. And I mean, it was a variety of, wrong people, wrong roles, as well as just things were that inherently broken. And so, a lot of people are resistant to change. And when you've got to change that much that quickly, it's you either lean in or you've got to get out of the way. The other big one was I did not get my arms around quickly enough how tight things were relative to our primary business model versus relative to our appetite and ability to be able to go and look at trying net new business opportunities, revenue streams, whatever. That was doubly so in a down market that was last year where, our revenue fell off, a fair bit. And so we made 2 or 3 bets last year that, based off of the data and the results and stuff like that were arguably not bad bets. Like the, product market fit was pretty strong. The demand was absolutely there. Our ability to be able to support those initiatives in the manner that they needed to be successful was absolutely not there. And so, we were sort of in a scenario of we were halfway trying something that we needed to put full, effort behind, but to do so would have been a, all-in bet where, to try and actually go in and put everything that needed to be in there to support it. If that had failed, then RevGenius may have not still been here. And so I failed to recognize that dynamic early enough. And so, we had some struggles last year because of attempts to bite stuff off at a time that we could not afford to try and bite it.
It's recognizing the mistakes, adapting to them, and knowing that, like, listen, mistakes aren't always bad bets, right? Like, you can make a good bet that turns out just to be wrong at the wrong time. And that's okay. How do you recover from that? So
you learn very quickly, or you fail,
or you die.
Yeah. So I mean, case in point there was, hey, no more new initiatives or distractions for the foreseeable future until we've got things on a better footing financially. We've got revenue that's back up to where it was or above. We've put some more padding and cushion in the bank, and we've got to be disciplined about this. And so it's going to be nothing but slapping of hands and no's until we get to that point, and being very disciplined about that. And that's arguably been my primary role and value add since then.
Chief hand slapper.
I love it. Absolutely. All right. What do you say we do some rapid fire as we try to wrap up on 30 minutes here? A ton of value. Let's pick your brain a little bit. Jason, are you an early bird or a night owl?
I am by nature a night owl, but after having kids, I'm more of an early bird than I would like to be. So, short answer, I'm a not sleeper enough.
Okay.
If you weren't in tech, what other job would you have?
I would have what I tried to escape from the business world into, which is academia. I actually wound up in Knoxville for a doctorate in philosophy.
Very cool. Other than your mobile phone, what is the one tech product you cannot live without?
And you have to say it that slow.
Do my AirPods count as not my phone since they have to be connected to it? Sure. Cool. AirPods.
What's the first?
They are literally part of what's in my pocket on a day-to-day basis.
How many of them have you put in the laundry?
Ooh.
One pair, and they still worked.
Really?
Yeah.
What's the first app you check when you wake up in the morning?
Text messages, SMS.
Yeah.
What is your favorite guilty pleasure snack?
Guilty pleasure snack. Ice cream.
Nice.
You and Dale.
Last one, wrapping this up. Dream vacation destination.
My literal plan after my youngest goes off to college is to sell everything, buy a sailboat, and spend a few years sailing around the world. So we'll call it that.
Nice. Love that. Love that.
Cool, man. Jason, thank you so much for joining the show. I'm assuming people can find you on LinkedIn /in/
Jason Hubbard Jason, I think.
There you go. Hubbard Jason.
There we go.
And go check out RevGenius, revgenius.com. Thanks for joining, man.
Thanks, Jason.
Guys, this has been great.
Later.
Thanks, guys.